So in his letter, St. Paul calls all of the people as part of the church as the holy ones or the saints. And everyone in heaven is a saint, so why does the church specifically recognize some people as saints? Is that a way of saying that everyone else isn't? Short answer, no. Longer answer, well, that's why I made this video. Before we get there, we're going to look at some stuff with language. The word saint comes from a Latin adjective, sanctus, sancta, sanctum, which means holy. It literally means set apart, so like set apart for some sort of purpose, usually a religious one. And in Greek, the equivalent is hagios, which is another adjective meaning the same thing. So there's this thing in language called a substantive. It's where you use an adjective as a noun. It doesn't happen very much in English. Pretty much the only example I can think of is, let's say you're at the movie theater at the concession stand getting a popcorn and you say, I'll have a medium. Well, medium's normally an adjective, but in this case you're using it as a noun referring to a medium popcorn. Like I said, not very common in English, but super common in Greek. So whenever Paul is writing the letters that he writes in the New Testament, he's using this word for holy a lot. And so when he uses it as a plural, so hoi hagioi, be the holies, but really he's referring to people, the holy ones. I brought all this up, one, because it's fun, but two, because this is the origin of the question, which is when Paul talks about the saints or the holy ones, this is the word that he's using, or this is the phrase that he's using. So he's referring to the members of the church as the holy ones. And we know that we are holy because God is holy. And this also points to the fact that the church, whether on earth or in heaven, is united. It's not like there's two separate churches. It's really one. But there is a difference between the church in heaven and the church on earth, in that the one on earth is still striving towards its goal and the other one has already reached the finish line. One of the images that Paul uses a lot, because his audience would have been familiar with it, is that of athletic competition. So things that would have been at the Olympics, because the Olympics were around back in Greek times. So for example, he says that all of the athletes compete for a crown, and it's a perishable crown, but we compete for an imperishable one. Everyone in heaven has already finished the race and received that crown, but on earth, they haven't yet. We haven't yet, because we might not actually finish the race. Paul does talks about he's worried that he might become disqualified. And that's a danger of the Christian life, is we need to always keep our eyes on the prize, which is Jesus. Paul urges us to run to the end. As I was preparing for this video, I had this really funny image, and I thought it's kind of retelling Paul's thing about I finished the fight, I've completed the race, I fought the good fight, that kind of thing. But as those old video games, like arcade games like Street Fighter and Pole Position, pretty much any fighting game or racing game. So I finished the fight is you successfully knocked out the opponent, and I finished the race was you raced your race car and you got in. I thought it was just really funny way to think about it. Another part of this game is the whole possibility of not finishing. And so let's say it's a racing game, because I've been using the racing game analogy. This would be where you just get out of your car and just don't even go. This is even a racing game where you don't have to come in first place. It's not a competition. You just have to finish the course. And we're just oh, I'm discouraged because so many other people are ahead of me. Or, look at the pretty billboard, or whatever it is. And so the world, the flesh, and the devil, the three-part badness, is trying to get us to not finish the game in some way. And God's there cheering us on, always bringing us back to himself, even when we're not playing, even when we've turned our car around or are going backwards, or we fall off a cliff and then Lakitu from Mario Kart has to come and pick you up and put you back. That's what grace is. That's what the sacrament of reconciliation is. I'm sure there's way more video game analogies I could do for this, but I think you get the point. So taking that analogy, the ones who finished the race are the ones who kept the faith to the end, and so they are in heaven. These are the saints, the holy ones. But some of them are the high scoreboard, and these are the canonized saints. So if the church has saint in front of their name, that's God's high scoreboard. Now, to be very, very clear, lest you think I'm advocating some sort of Pelagian pull yourself up to heaven by your moral bootstraps thing, I'm not, because God designs the game and makes the world and gives you the quarters to play it and tells you what moves you're supposed to do in order to win the game, and basically everything. All we have to do is actually do it. The holdup is on our end. whether or not we respond to God, because it's scary, it takes us out of ourselves, and all of that. Some people do a much better job of responding to God and saying yes to him, and so that's how they end up on the high scoreboard. God would love us all to be on the high scoreboard. I mean, he also loves us to just finish. Like, he's not disappointed if we just finish, because that was the whole point, was for us to do this thing, this life, this game of life that he's designed for us. Bringing it back to the original question, which is when Paul talks about the saints as all of the church, that's the way that we can speak of it, is all of these players in the game. And we don't know for sure if they're going to finish the game, but we do pray that they do, and we all encourage each other as we strive towards that goal. Everyone who's crossed the finish line, everyone in heaven, is a saint. Some of them we've actually recognized, because it's hard to tell, we don't really know if someone is, unless through their intercession a miracle has happened, because the only way a miracle can happen is if God wills it. So that's the guarantee. And so the church has very stringent things for determining is someone a canonized saint. Just because they're not canonized doesn't mean a whole lot. They still could very well be in heaven. And so that's why we have All Saints Day as a feast day in the church. So we're celebrating all of the saints. That's why saints. So go on and finish the race and fight the fight. And God is there cheering you on, encouraging you to get a high score. So get a high score.